About late 2009 or so is when I moved to Amazon purely out of passion in pop culture primarily. But I built out IMDb's mobile business, worked on consumer media, got very fortunate to work closely with Jeff Bezos and learn just by observing through osmosis over those years. After working on movies for about 4 years, I was fortunate to lead the product team for music. A lot of listening is happening in non-music audio as well. So I was fortunate to start Amazon's podcasting business.
How were you able to build trust with the leadership and really convince them to go and start this business with Amazon?
I think if you write a good plan and back it up with data, rooted in customer value and invention, I found that the leadership team are very amenable to invest, take risks, very bold risks at times.
Tell us what Olto does in a simple language.
So Olto is a product customization platform. So we sell to sales teams and help them tailor live product demos for their prospects, use case, persona, industry, and so on.
Specific mentors, which has really helped shape your career in the US.
I'm a strong benefactor of the Indian diaspora, and at every important decision, there is a set of high judgment folks I can go to bounce my ideas off of. And I'm very grateful for one of the core powers of the Indian diaspora.
Whether it's traits or mindset or skill, you think Indian diasporas are so good at what they do?
I think it's along three vectors. Those three vectors, ambition, hustle, and a greater purpose. The way it manifests itself is in being helpful, doing everything they can to help other fellow members of the Indian diaspora has been quite fascinating.
We had Kintan Brahmbhatt on the podcast today. Kintan is a prominent entrepreneur, operator, and investor who has built and scaled products and businesses from zero to nearly 100 million customers. He's currently the co-founder and CEO of Olto, an AI platform for personalizing sales demos. Previously, he held key roles at Amazon, including GM and co-founder of Amazon Podcast, head of product at Amazon Music, and IMDb. In our conversation, we explore his early life in India, his journey through Microsoft and Amazon, his current venture Olto, and why Indian diasporas are excelling in the US. Now I bring you Kintan. All right, Kintan, I am so excited to have you on the podcast. I've been wanting to do this for a while now, so here I am, and I'm excited.
Thanks for having me. Super excited to get this done.
Kintan, a good starting point can be, we are really a byproduct of our environment. What shaped you the most growing up?
Yeah, I grew up mainly in Ahmedabad until my high school, and then came to the US for my undergrad studies. So parents, obviously, and specifically, the qualities of thinking big, grit, so not giving up, basically finishing what you started, and really, working really hard, whether it was the board exams or, preparing for, the entrance exams for colleges or coming to the US. I think those things were just natural and were just inculcated by my parents from a very early age. I remember very early, distinctly, when I remember getting like a third or a fourth rank in my class, and in a very approachable manner, not in not like a scolding tone or so on. And say, hey, fourth rank is amazing, but what's even better? The first rank. Let's see what we can do. So I think that sense of always aiming higher, and then providing a support ecosystem to kind of achieve that, while ensuring that I do work hard and I do have grit, I do have self-reliance and so on. I think that was one thing that kind of, when I look back on some of the things that I end up doing over and over again, whether it was in corporate America or in startups, I think those things have come in very handy. And the second aspect is around books. Now, I've been a big reader from a very young age, and that has actually, even pre-internet, has exposed me to different ways of thinking. I'd kind of either go to libraries or have friends or family members visit from the US, and they'll actually bring some interesting books for me as well. So, reading, some of the early books by Bill Gates, and, Business at the Speed of Thought, for instance, was an interesting book. That just shaped my thinking in a certain lane, and I'm very grateful for that. So early days was those values, and then it was all about kind of taking, using those as the building blocks and applying it to problem at hand or situation at hand. Whether it was, once I came to the US, said, hey, yeah, let's start studying computer science. Which I got two inspirations. One was when I watched this movie Matrix. And I was just fascinated by this concept of things that can be built with code. And second was about one of the set of books I also read were biographies of business leaders, specifically Indian business leaders. As the author named Geeta Piramal. She has written a bunch of really good books. Now, she wrote the biography of Rahul Bajaj, but early on, she wrote a book called Business Maharajas, I believe. It really talks about the early lives of Aditya Birla and Dhirubhai Ambani and Vijay Shah. All of these Indian industrialists kind of gives a perspective on how their upbringing was and how they went from one place to another. Especially in terms of their aspirations. And, I remember reading Aditya Birla writing a letter to his grandfather or to his father from being an undergrad in MIT. This was probably in the 60s or 70s, likely, about how he wants to think even bigger and do it for India in a certain way. And then, how he opened so many factories and companies over the years. I think that just was fascinating. Reading these things in my high school was just fascinating. And I was also reading about, some of the American entrepreneurs, especially on the tech side of things, whether it was Bill Gates, but also Vinod Khosla. Just towards the end, there was this book called The Next Thing or The New Thing by Michael Lewis. He was a very popular author, but one of his very early books talked about the early days of internet. And there's this whole chapter or whole story about Sabir Bhatia. I hadn't heard of him at all. And he talks about, the Hotmail story, and it was just fascinating to see, somebody coming from India and kind of building a company, scaling it up, doing it very fast. It was just fascinating to me. So parents, values, and then books. I think those two pillars instrumental, at least for me personally.
Yeah. This the book on or the biographies on Indian businessmen sounds very interesting. I'll ask you for the name of the book in a bit. Kintan, what really inspired or motivated you to move to the US? What was the journey like? What college did you go to, and post college, how did you get into the world of tech?
I around in high school, I had this strong desire to. I'm a builder. I've loved building things even from a very young age. I'd have a stall at the high school fun fair, for instance, and so on. I've loved business building and enterprise building, and I realized that I think the slope of building things would be faster and higher at that. We're talking about early 2000s. If I were to be in the US, because I was seeing all these stories about folks starting businesses and scaling them. So when I applied, there were two camps of colleges I applied to. Camp one had MIT and Stanford, and I did not get into either of those two. Camp two was around a good school, but near our extended family. I had extended family near Purdue University, which is why I ended up going there. Say, hey, so it's a good school, whatever, top 10 or so on. Not number one, let's say, like not MIT or not Stanford, but it was still a good school. And just so my parents felt a bit more comfortable sending me, as an undergrad student, as long as I was closer to the family, somehow, extended family at least. At least they knew somebody who was within driving distance, even if it was 2 or 3 hours away. So I went to Purdue University. I enrolled in computer science, fascinated by it. As an undergrad, you end up taking a lot of other classes as well. And I was fascinated by new languages, and I was learning Spanish. Also started taking economics, and just fell in love with it. So I ended up, enrolling in economics as a second concentration as well, along with computer science, because I just was fascinated by the concept of the whole science of choice. Economics, as my professor described it, is the science of choice or science of decision making. And it was just it was a fascinating journey to kind of dive super deep into it. And Purdue ended up being a stroke of luck, because it had one of the best entrepreneurship programs out there. Because the professors were so supportive, and the ecosystem in the school, everything from both the entrepreneurship professors, who are very supportive and helpful, but also the other professors knew that, hey, if I was starting a company and I was part of this whole broader entrepreneurship program, they were generally lenient. And if I was late on my projects, they were just very kind and generous with their leniency. So I actually, just in my the end of my first year in college, I decided to start a company with the co-founder and say, hey, let's just start. And my exposure to different industries was limited to healthcare at the time, for two reasons. One is, as a economic student, I was reading, that, hey, healthcare costs were increasing significantly, and there are solutions that we can have around with technology that we can solve it. And then in the extended family, a lot of doctors and folks in the healthcare profession. So I'd just constantly bother them with questions, say, what makes this work? How might it work differently? What are the economics of a community hospital? What are the economics of a private practice, etc.? And just to really understand, just I was this, on a relentless pursuit of curiosity, and just dawned upon me that there were some problems that could be solved very naively, through technology. Now, obviously, we got very lucky and won the business plan competitions at Purdue, and then also represented the US in international competitions. So that really helped us quite a bit, built out the product. Eventually, that didn't pan out, it was a soft landing, but it's a phenomenal experience to just learn by doing. Now, as a 17-year-old, freshly from India, figuring out how to start a business, how to have co-founders and early folks to help out and build a business plan was just a fascinating journey. And still lessons from that experience. It was a very formative experience for me at the time, and mainly lessons in generosity. To be honest, everyone, whether it was my colleagues or other students at Purdue or the professors, they went, out of their way to be supportive. I'm just super, super fortunate to have had the opportunity to go through that experience. And then just moving on from a career perspective, and the company didn't do as I had expected. I wanted to learn scale, how to build things at scale, and learn from folks who are really good at what they're doing. So looked, and I was big, I'd read all these books by Bill Gates and such. So I applied at Microsoft, got very lucky, and got a role. Worked initially in engineering, and then very quickly went into a product role, and worked on the very early days of unified communications, which is now Microsoft Teams. So it was the very, very, very early days of that line of business, and learned a ton there. Microsoft had this thing called Think Week, where you can write all kinds of papers and ideas, and it'll be read by Bill Gates or other senior leaders. And this happened twice a year. So I wrote documents every Think Week, and then sometimes we get notes from Bill Gates on the idea, and it was just fascinating to kind of interact through that medium. Ended up incubating a small new business within Microsoft around social networking for professionals. This was pre-LinkedIn, around conferences and interest graph, and that was a fascinating journey within as well. And then about late 2009 or so is when I moved to Amazon, and my Amazon move was actually purely out of just passion about my passion in pop culture primarily. I'm a big fan of pop culture, whether it's music or movies or comics, podcasts, and I was just fascinated by IMDb, Internet Movie Database, which I thought was a nonprofit. I did not realize until then that it was owned by Amazon. There was a large team presence in Seattle at the time, which is where I was based. I got a very unique opportunity to join IMDb and work on some interesting ideas of growing IMDb. IMDb was at scale, very popular website, very popular product, very repeat traffic, on a weekly basis with no new movies coming out every week. But I built out IMDb's mobile business. Also looked at, where can we take some consumer insights and bring IMDb's data across the rest of the product portfolio. And a few things we realized that, hey, IMDb's mobile apps, the peak usage was coinciding with the prime time US primetime TV watching. So it was apparent that consumers were using the IMDb app while watching the movie or while watching TV. We thought, hey, what if we could actually embed contextual data about who's the actor on the screen or who's the actress on the screen, or a bit more info on the character of the person along with the content itself. It was a very fortunate time because 2009, 2010, that was the time when Amazon as a company was just starting to get into digital media devices. So I got very fortunate to have read the first business plan for Prime Video, for instance, or early discussions around Kindle's first set of tablets or Alexa devices or Fire Phone. Just having worked on consumer media, because each of those devices had a role to play where media was concerned, and so built out a product we call X-Ray. X-Ray essentially tells you if you're watching something on Prime Video, it'll tell you who's the actor at that specific moment. That was a fun experience to kind of invent along with the team, invent something from scratch and then kind of roll it out. Got very fortunate to work closely with Jeff Bezos and learn just by observing through osmosis over those years. And growing up in India, movies and music are kind of very intertwined. So after working on movies for about 4 years, I started looking into other things. And the next obvious thing was that, hey, let's get into streaming music, because if for Amazon for long term with the aspirations in the devices ecosystem, I think the value would be greater to have our own streaming music service, and otherwise be on the wrong side of history when it comes to music, given the consumer music consumption trends, both in the US as well as worldwide. And I was fortunate to lead the product team for music, help write the initial. We write press releases, like a mock press release at Amazon, and the business plan for Amazon Music, which is initially Prime Music, and then we kind of scaled it up into Amazon Music, tens of millions of subscribers, top 3 music service, and so on. And spent about 6 years to scale that from zero to a large scale product. And after that, just all these customers were asking about audio, but non-music audio. When we look at the share of listening, I realized that a lot of listening is happening in non-music audio as well. So I was fortunate to start Amazon's podcasting business, where I helped build it up from scratch and scale it. And we scaled it through a couple of acquisitions as well. So acquired a couple of companies, a podcasting content studio called Wondery, and a tech counterpart, while building a lot of the team and the product in-house as well. And then last year started Olto. A parallel thread throughout my corporate experience has been investing. So see, I've been an entrepreneur. I love early stage. While I was building new businesses within Amazon or helping build new businesses within Amazon, I also wanted to make sure that I'm closer to the broader startup ecosystem. And I realized that the best way to do that is to have some skin in the game. And so very early on, 15, 16 years ago, I started early stage investing, angel investing. And I must have invested in 50, 60 plus companies by now. And given my day job was in consumer, almost all of my investments have been in B2B, in B2B SaaS, just to avoid the conflict and such. And been very fortunate to have had a chance to operate some world-class founders and founding teams. operate, scale, both companies that worked out and companies that didn't work out. But it was just fascinating to see them scale from scratch.
Yeah. Looks like, Kintan, as you mentioned right from the beginning, when you were young, you really wanted to be a builder, and you were, even at, even in school, and in your corporate world where, you have co-founded, bunch of products, or vertical businesses within Amazon and Microsoft, which you just talked about. I believe, Amazon Music was, I think, consumed by 50 million plus users, and podcasts and other stuff. How are you, if you have to reflect and think over it, uh, how are you able to build trust with the leadership, and really convince them, hey, I'm the right guy to go and start this business within, let's say, Microsoft or Amazon?
Yeah, I think the believability. I think what you're asking is believability, and it's really at Amazon in particular. I think there's very little delta, I'd say, between thought and action, as long as you have a justified way of proposing. So, I mean, deciding to build Prime Music was a 1 hour meeting with a 6-page document with Jeff and the leadership team at Amazon that greenlit the project. It was a non-trivial investment. The company, just as a culture, believes in thinking big, doing the right long-term thing for the customer. And if we can lay out essentially that, hey, here's why it makes sense, here's why it's the right thing for the customers, here's how we are going to be unique and differentiated in the market segment, and here's how we are going to win in a long-term, in a 10-year business plan or a 5-year business plan. I think the value of writing it down in a 6-page document, as a press release and some FAQs, is that there's a singular vocabulary, a singular format, it's meritocratic. I think if you write a good plan and back it up with data, back it up with customer rooted in customer value and invention, then I found that Amazon as a company and the leadership team, Jeff and other senior leaders, were very amenable to invest, take risks, take bold risks, very bold risks at times, and which is what, frankly, kept me at Amazon. To be very honest, I even asked myself many times over the course of my career that, hey, should I start a new business, or should I leave Amazon for another company, or so on? And it really boiled down to the fact that, hey, what really drives me is invention and creation, building new products and businesses. And as long as I'm able to do that at scale, might as well do that here, because I have a strong support system, as well as really sharp, motivated folks who are like rooted in customer centricity. Even when I was starting Olto, my startup, there were a couple of theses. I wanted to explore, hey, how do we make B2B software selling more e-commerce grade? There are areas that I thought were missing in how software is being sold. And the role of product was not as high as I, as a product builder, wanted the product to be. And the other idea we explored was in the future of recruiting and what. And both of those ideas, it didn't make sense for me to try them within Amazon. So that's why I said, hey, these ideas are most likely better done as individual startups. Then that's why. But if there was an idea that I was super passionate about that could have been done within Amazon, I would have explored that option as well.
Got it.
So does that answer your question? I gave a little more context as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So let's dive into Olto, Kintan. You mentioned that Olto was something, it wouldn't have made sense if you were building within Amazon. So that's straight shows that, okay, now I have to go build this outside of Amazon, and it seems like you were very passionate about it. Just give us that the why for you, that, hey, I really want to go and build Olto. Tell us what Olto does in a simple language, and what's the magical moment or outcome that you hold for yourself, the team at Olto?
Yeah. So Olto is a product customization platform. So we sell to sales teams and help them tailor, personalize their live product demos for their prospects, use case, persona, industry, and so on. Now, the simple thesis behind it is, as I come from a product building background, and I've always had a vision that, hey, this product should be presented to the customer in a certain way. This product should be sold in a certain way for it to shine and for it to kind of shine in its full glory and make sense for the buyer. As having seen countless numbers of how B2B sales is happening, countless numbers of sales pitches and so on for companies I've been part of as an investor or advisor and otherwise, I realized that more and more product is going to play an outsized role in the future of modern GTM, even for sales assisted motions. And it behooved upon me, just as a product person, that hey, how can we make it super simple for the sellers as well as the buyers to experience the product in their context. So the first product of Olto is a very simple product customization platform that, hey, as a seller, I can press one button and it'll transform my actual live production product into something that'll make sense for the seller. So if I have a recruiting software and I want to sell to a hospital, I can press a button and it'll make the recruiting software look as if it's built for a healthcare company or a hospital. And that the inkling of an idea was the inception happened about a dozen years ago when I first worked on X-Ray. Now, X-Ray for Prime Video is essentially a contextual layer that sits on top of a media, top of a video. We have lyrics similarly for music and so on. I always envisioned building an X-Ray, a contextual layer that sits on top of dynamic products and live products. I always had this back of my mind that, hey, what would X-Ray look like for a product? And when I was thinking about the future of B2B sales, dawned upon me that, hey, we can actually make the product more relevant, more contextual to the buyer if we have a layer. So Olto actually adds this layer using AI, and the last year was a fortuitous moment because some of these things were feasible for the first time. We apply some of the cutting edge large language models to HTML. Most of the SaaS apps are HTML web-based apps, so to HTML to on the fly customize these products. So it's like a mixture of a few trends, both an insight I've held for a very long time on a product that I've built, as well as this vision of the future of selling software and the timing being right with accessibility of these large language models at a certain cost, so that we can actually deploy them on all kinds of scenarios at scale. That's how we started Olto.
Got it. And Kintan, look, you were having a great professional life at Amazon, and you decided to build Olto, which is, again, you just mentioned, is the insight that you had, and also the future that you see in terms of software selling. So the why was really strong. But one advice, I feel now already people are reaching out to you, or maybe later on, folks who were in a similar situation, working at leadership positions at these large companies and really want to start something of their own. What advice would you what would you give them if you were to give one?
Yeah, I think every situation is different. It's a personal decision. I'll tell you the mental model or the framework I used personally. It's really it's a combination of both personal as well as very logical approach. Personal is this regret minimization framework. I asked myself, hey, if I ever want to start my own company, if I ever envision myself as being an entrepreneur again, then now is a great time, because opportunity cost is the lowest now. Between now and the rest of my career, the opportunity cost is the lowest. Because, hey, if I wait, as you mentioned, hey, as leaving a certain job that comes with all kinds of benefits and so on, those benefits will only increase with time. It's only going to become harder. So that was one. The second was, stage of life. Now, I felt that my co-founder and my founding team members, when we discussed it, that, hey, do you all feel good about starting this and doing this together? And they're all ready. So had I waited for a little longer, who knows, they may not have been ready, or had I started it a few years ago. So the timing seemed so opportune. Plus combining that with my personal aspirations, and just building things from scratch and scaling them gives me immense joy as a builder.
Yeah.
So, and I wanted to do that as an entrepreneur. So it made sense. And then you layer on the thesis, how strongly we believed in the thesis, and how big the opportunity was, given the opportunity, as well as the accessibility of these models, these AI models, foundation models and such. So it was a confluence of few factors, but individually for me, really like two things. One was, hey, if I ever want to do it, then let's just minimize the regret. And if you were to look at it from a financial perspective or so on, it was this whole notion of opportunity cost being the lowest now. The third option, and I say it with all humility, that if this were to not work out, I was generally comfortable that I'd be able to find something interesting, even at Amazon or outside Amazon. So I had that much comfort that, hey, so it was somewhat of a reversible decision in a way.
Yeah.
So those 3 points helped me get comfortable, and helped our founding team members get comfortable, my co-founder get comfortable with the idea, and we got started.
The current circumstances with you are as such that not taking risk is actually a bigger risk.
Yeah.
And Kintan, any specific experiences or mentors that you've had which has really helped shape your career in the US?
It's been a set of task specific or task relevant mentors or folks I looked up to. There were, early on when I joined Microsoft, actually out of school. Some of I was as my first job as a product manager, as a PM. My counterpart engineer, he had joined Microsoft in the year I was born. So it was just so profoundly impactful to see him work. I was getting my lifetime's worth of knowledge somebody has gathered, having worked at a very high performing capacity. So just observing was one. Second was few interactions I've had with folks I looked up to in a very big way, whether it's Jeff Bezos. Fortunate to talk with Bill Gates a couple of times around not work, but really, like, one thing I'd really learned and appreciated, admired about Microsoft and how Gates specifically ran was the influence of giving back to the society. Now, Microsoft actually has the month of October is called the giving campaign month, or the giving month, where senior leaders at that time, like Bill Gates and everyone else in the senior leadership, they leaned in, they scuba dived into ensuring that the broader team members across Microsoft are aware of why it's important and how to do it, and they'll incentivize by matching donations and whatnot. And remember, in my, it's probably 23, 24, and I was like, hey, I asked Bill around, hey, I don't have as much money as you have to give back. How do I do that? And I can give some money back, from my small salary. And is it really going to make an impact? And he took the time, and it still made an impression, so many years later, that, hey, look, John Rockefeller was a devout Christian and spent, X percentage of his efforts and energies and income, etc., on charity. And that just compounded over time. So pick some percentage, and could be of your time, could be of your attention span, could be of money, etc. But start early. So by the time when you're ready, the knowledge, the interest, etc., would have compounded in a meaningful way. So I think that, and so for me, one of the things I've been passionate about is poverty alleviation, and using entrepreneurship, enterprise to alleviate poverty across the world, or but do it at scale where you take a district, figure out ways to alleviate it in that district through either micro entrepreneurship or some other ways, education and so on. And I've gone fairly deep into that, having read books and having had a chance to interact with folks who are doing actual good work at scale. So that was one super important. Jeff Bezos at Amazon, on just being just so courageous to have the have the courage to think so much in the future, take the risks, even smaller things. Take risks around simple decisions around, hey, should X-ray feature be on by default or not, for instance. And I remember we debated that, and like having the conviction that, hey, if this is the right thing for the customer, it's net positive for the customers, adding value to the customers, then it is the right thing to do. And let's go with that. I think some of these things just kind of pick up just by observing them. Lots of folks, many of my friends, fellow founders, Indian diaspora has been. I'm a very, very, very strong benefactor or beneficiary, I think I'd say, of the Indian diaspora. And I, at every important decision, I've had the privilege to be able to reach out to folks I respect and who have been more than generous with their time, their insights. Both folks within India as well as outside of India. Oftentimes I reach out to Gokul Rajaram, whom I know you know as well. Very kind, generous with his time and insights over the last 10 years. It's been super, super kind to me. And like many folks, even the fellow founders, Kunal Shah of Cred in India, oftentimes, he's been just very generous with his insights, and Zishan Hayat, Topper, or Arjun Rohan Malhotra from Bharat Founders Fund and Good Capital. And lots of folks at Nexus Ventures, and folks at Peak and Z47, and like Sanjay Nath at Bloom, and really helpful with very contextual, applicable, accessible advice on that specific topic. So it hasn't been like a single set. It's been like a series of very timely and contextual set of thinking points. There have been instances where I've not ended up taking some of those advice just because of other circumstances and such, but been very the comfort of knowing that there is a set of high judgment folks I can go to bounce my ideas off of has been just rewarding, and I'm very grateful for that. And I think that's kind of, that talks about the one of the core powers of the Indian diaspora, where this sense of hey, if it's a founder from India, whether in India or outside, let's just help. And oftentimes I think it's not just India, they are just genuinely helpful folks, so they help folks as well. But I think my initial connections to them were through that lens, and that's helped. And in any small way I can pay it forward, I consider that a privilege.
Yeah. Look, I think stats tells it. Indian diaspora is, if not the most high functioning, or you can call it powerful, folks in the US now. 16 of Fortune 500 companies are led by Indian diasporas. 11% of all unicorns in US are founded by Indian diasporas. Kintan, what are like one or two, whether it's traits or mindset or skill, you think Indian diasporas are so good at what they do?
I think it's along three vectors. First vector is ambition. I think when I talk to folks, even founders in India building companies out of India, I talk to Kunal Shah. I think he redefines the definition of ambition. Every time I talk to him, I just come back with a bigger idea of how to approach a certain thing, for instance. And then generally, ambition and thinking big is one. Hustle is the other one, where just that tenacity to get ahead in life, and that helps with competition and how to just get things done. Like even I go back to India, like folks like house help, for instance, or like the house help will bring their kids for a one-on-one session, when every time I go back, and we'll talk about their school and how they are approaching their career, how they're picking which stream to study in, and so on. And it's just because they want to get knowledge from wherever they can, and just be resourceful and just do the most they can to move ahead. And that's like a very strong hustle. Or an Uber driver trying to pitch his startup in Bangalore, and just it was pretty interesting to see that happens in San Francisco as well. But I observed it once in India as well. And it was pretty interesting. So hustle is the second vector, and the third vector is this. I think a greater purpose, and some of it is patriotic, some of it is maybe not patriotic. But I think the fact that's genuinely I've found wherever that there is an Indian founder or somebody who can help. People have gone out of their way to help me just because I'm Indian, and it's just fascinating to see that. It's just very hard to describe what it is, and there's this sense of doing something bigger, which is like, hey, we are doing it to bring India on the map. When a company goes public in India, they say, hey, we have brought India in the back. Like Girish, for instance, is an amazing leader. Like, hey, when Freshworks went public, it was all about, it's also about bringing India on that map as well. So I think that higher purpose that kind of applies to everyone. I think that everyone in the Indian diaspora, I think those three vectors, ambition, hustle, and a greater purpose, and the way it manifests itself is in being helpful and doing everything they can to help other fellow members of the Indian diaspora, has been quite fascinating.
Yeah, Kintan, look, you've been involved with the Indian tech ecosystem, as you just mentioned. You've invested in Cred, in Kunal Shah's company. You've made other investments as well in India. How did your journey started? And since you've been seeing the tech ecosystem, what excites you the most about the Indian tech ecosystem going forward?
Yeah, see, again, three dimensions in which the Indian diaspora is interwoven with my life, both personally and professionally. So first, I consider myself an active member of the global Indian diaspora founder ecosystem and investor ecosystem, and I'm an active participant through either a set of one-on-one conversations on a very regular cadence, with other founders, investors, other large communities, both like SaaS Boomi, for instance, is one, and lots of other communities that I'm part of here. Funda in the Bay Area is an interesting community, and lots of WhatsApp groups, micro WhatsApp groups. Bharat Founders Fund, the work that Manav and team are doing. So that's one, and that has been more about first among equals, basically. When I have these conversations, I end up learning more from those conversations than contributing, and I consider that a privilege. The second is skin in the game. So been fortunate to have had the opportunity to invest in companies started by Indian diaspora in the US, companies started by founders in India, a few funds where I've had the opportunity to be an LP, like the 1947 Rice Fund, and thank you for that. The third angle is in Olto, quite a few members of the Indian diaspora on our cap table, in our obviously in our founding team, and advisors, customers, and so on. So when I look at it across various aspects, I think whether it's being just an active citizen, an active company helper or founder helper, or an investor with some skin in the game, as well as my immediate startup, The Indian diaspora is woven throughout it. And what excites me about that is the same three vectors I'd mentioned earlier, which is this ambition, hustle, and it's just you can see actual joy in people when I've seen that when one founder succeeds, like there's a sense of joy in other founders as well, and that's very special to see.
Yeah.
So I think that's what excites me.
Love it. Kintan, we'll switch gears here. My co-founder in the back, I think you can see him. His name is Alfonso. He wants to get in, and he wants to get to know you outside of work. He's asking, Kintan, what are you really most obsessed about these days outside of work?
So work is a lot of fun for me. I have a 5-year-old son, and it's been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life, where specifically from an intellectual curiosity perspective, as I see him learn a new language, he's learning Italian right now. As I see him learn Italian, for instance, it's almost like seeing a small language model. We are talking about lots of LLMs. It's like an SLM. It's a small language model of its own. And it's just fascinating to see how the human brain functions, how the human brain grows, and so on. He's into tennis, as you know. So just seeing his journey, through tennis, seeing him learn some of the life lessons like, grit. Even if you miss a shot, even if you don't put the ball on the other side of the net, trying it again. It's just fascinating to just observe from a third-person perspective. So that's giving me a lot of joy and purpose and just excitement, because just from a curiosity perspective to see how the brain just develops. It's just fascinating to see that. Do a little bit of work out of intellectual curiosity around just learning poverty alleviation. Lots of reading, talking to folks who are doing interesting, effective work in that realm. I wish I had more time and resources to contribute to it, but I keep up with it. And the third is really helping other founders, either as an investor or a fellow founder in any way. I think that's where most of the time goes. So first thing is the startup, and then the kid. And third is about a little bit of poverty alleviation and a bit of helping other founders.
And Kintan, what are a few things that you really want to learn or experience that you just haven't gotten the time yet, but at some point you would love to do that?
I really am a big I'm a big student of understanding how people develop good taste. And I kind of know a bit of that in product development. Just as a builder and as a product builder, I have some inclination of what that means. But I'm just fascinated. Like every time I get a chance to talk to a good chef, for instance, I really got like the conversations. Those are some of the best conversations. And I was talking with Gagan Anand, one of the is a very good chef out of Bangkok, and just understanding his journey was fascinating. Or an artist, like how they decide to draw something or paint something in a certain way, or just somebody who's just so good at their craft, whether it's a simple tennis coach, for instance. Like how can they convince a 5-year-old to listen? Which I've been trying to do and not being able to, and then you go talk to this coach and they really figure out that hey, and it's really, and I'm using the term taste in a very broad sense, but it really comes down to that conscious choice they make. They can choose between 2 or 3 different ways, and they made a thoughtfully intentional decision to take that approach. In tennis coach, for instance, we're trying to teach my son forehands, how to hit forehands. And we tried a few approaches. And then this coach kind of comes and says, hey, you know what? Imagine you are a starfish now. So your hands needs to be like this. and then you need to flap it, and then he kind of just quickly got it. I'm talking when he was 3.5 years old or so, but it's fascinating to see how they've kind of figured these things out. And it kind of comes with so many trials and errors, and there's confirmation bias and survivor's bias, because we don't get to see all the other ideas that didn't work out, all the other recipes that didn't quite work out, or all the other paintings in the earlier days of that artist that didn't quite work out. So understanding their process, how they arrived at that specific set of skill set or craft is something. When I have if I had more time, that's where I just there's so many people I want to talk to, and really understand what what the magic is in their work.
I think, Kintan, the most effective and an efficient way is to start a podcast at some point, Kintan,
Yes.
and just interviewing folks from different walks of life, and this actually, I mean, I have the similar fascination. I just enjoy meeting folks who are just obsessed with their craft, and craft could be anything. I just get so curious. I'll relate this with something. So Nitin Kamath, as you know, the founder of Zero Thou, and I asked him one question. I'm like, Nitin, look, you're a busy guy, and you do investments as well, and typically, you'll do one meeting, max two meeting with a founder. How do you decide so quickly? And he said, Shiva, look, you played tennis for, let's say, 15, 20 years, right? I'm like, yeah, I have. He's like, Shiva, don't you think when you play somebody new on the tennis court, within 10 to 15 minutes, you'll get an idea what kind of level that person has, what his or her strengths are, weaknesses, and he was so right on point. And yeah, I guess it's just the judgment or the filter that you build over time, that becomes your this looks, going back to your taste analogy, how do they develop good taste in anything that they're doing? And Kintan, one last one. We know you as a as a leader at large companies, now currently as a founder. What do your friends know you for?
I think being available. I hope to say that they know me for being available when needed, just unconditionally. I think that's what I'd like to be known for. But that's one. And then the pop culture is the other angle. I think whether it's movies or music or podcast or so on, I think big into pop culture. I think those are the two axes that I think my friends would call out, hopefully.
Yeah. You gotta watch Pushpa 2, Kintan, if you haven't already.
Yes, it's on the list. It's not out on OTT, and I haven't had a chance to go to a theater yet here. So, but it's definitely on the list. Big fan of the songs, and I think it's just again, that's very Sukumar is such a very peculiar, distinctive taste, and the design choices, the aesthetic choices in building out that product. It's just fascinating to see, and it's super different from what Mani Ratnam would do or Rajamouli would do, yet super effective. And it's just fascinating to kind of just compare, contrast, see what makes that work, how might it work differently. And as a product builder, I think it just gives me just pure joy.
Yeah. Kintan, thank you so much. I'm grateful that you took the time to come on the podcast, spend an hour, and really walk us through your amazing journey so far. And I'm excited for you. What you end up building through Olto in the coming years. Thank you so much.
Thanks for letting me weigh in. And I'd just say, like some of the things I've said, please treat it as a data point of one. Mileage may vary.